It's that time again. It's swamp time. Saga of the Swamp Thing, Volume 2 by Alan Moore. I feel like he's hitting his stride at this point. He's getting more comfortable with the characters, more comfortable with the world building, sort of elaborating on this Swamp Thing universe, cutting loose a little bit. Alan Moore's starting to just cut a little loose with old Swamp Thing. There was one issue which I really did not like, and I'll get to that in a moment. I really did not like this issue, Pog. But before we become a negative Nancy, let's try and be a positive Pam, and start with what I did like, which is the majority, really. I liked most of it. I liked seeing how a bunch of ideas come together, or rather how one idea sort of branches off into all these other ones. And I don't know if he planned it ahead of time, or if it's just like your mind sort of connects and goes a bunch of places and leads to a bunch of happy narrative coincidences. But so I liked how, so in the previous volume, our hero Swamp Thing, he finds out that he's not quite Alec Holland. He's not quite the man Alec Holland like he thought he was. He's rather a conglomeration of plants who thinks it's Alec Holland, who has the consciousness of Alec Holland. And it leads to a bunch of interesting stories where, okay, so if he's not Alec Holland, then what happened to his body? You know, what happened to his spirit? He meets the ghost of Alec Holland, the man he thought he was. He, buries his body, puts him at rest, later meets him in the underworld on a fantastical adventure with the Phantom Stranger and Dead Man. Just a lot of stuff that you wouldn't quite expect reading that initial sort of retcon or re-origin story, but that it sort of makes, it's very clean and logical in hindsight. They sort of seem like obvious places for the story to go, but you never think that they would go there, if that makes sense. You don't anticipate it, but it's very obvious when it does happen, and it's very cool and very, very nice. Very nice and cool. Let's see what else. I appreciate that it's continuing to sort of, make Swamp Thing a horror, supernatural character, sort of expanding that world, meets the Phantom Stranger, goes to hell essentially. There was a point in the Swamp Thing Bronze Age Volume 2 where it really seemed like they were trying to make him more of a superhero type character. Like there was some editorial mandate where it's like, well, we need to make Swamp Thing do some snappy comebacks while he's fighting bad guys. And that didn't really work for me. So I like that they're continuing with this sort of urban legend horror character. I don't even know if he throws a punch in this whole. Yeah, he probably does. He probably does throw a couple punches when he fights Arcane earlier. The yellow thought balloons are back, but they're not so yellow. I don't know if this is a printing thing, if it's this book in particular, but the yellow thought balloons are back. They're not as distracting this time around. They're not used as much, I don't think. They're not as they were getting a little weird and stilted at some point. It continues on with his budding romance with his lady love. Becomes a sort of Beauty and the Beast type thing. Probably the most, like, I don't know. One of the issues people always talk about is she eats a yam from Swamp Thing's body, and they go on a psychosexual adventure. Very psychedelic. I like this transition here, how it transitions from vertical into the horizontal paneling. I gotta go slower. Hold the camera farther away. See, it sort of does this cool vertical to horizontal transition, and then you're reading some sort of horizontal paneling, which makes it obnoxious to hold as a book, but it's kind of cool, and that's fun. I found the writing a little overwrought in this issue, especially a little over verbose. Alan Moore gets his prose doesn't always hit home for me. I really like his ideas, like 99% of the time, the way he sort of connects the dots and sort of crafts a plot. His prose is good for me 75% of the time, I think. Let's see. Okay. Now that I've said, oh wait, here's another good thing. So it sort of folds in Swamp Thing's sort of origin story. Not necessarily his origin story, but he first showed up in, I think it was House of Mystery. There was an initial shorter story that featured a sort of similar but different Swamp Thing origin, and it sort of reprints it, folds it into the continuity in a sort of interesting way. I like it here, but in general, I don't know if this sort of instigated it or what, but I don't, in general, like this sort of dick measuring contest between like comic book writers of like what obscure continuity can we fold into the character? What weird obscure continuity? What old issues of Jimmy Olsen Adventures can we make canonical to the character of Superman? And it's like, oh, it's can't throw nothing away. Can't throw away any piece of continuity. Gotta use all the parts of the Buffalo. It works sometimes. I think it works for the most part here. I think I don't know. It's weird sometimes. Okay. Said all the good stuff. I hated this issue. I hated this. It's called Pog, and maybe me not liking it is going to, this is okay. So this is based off some other comic strip called Pogo, and if you're like really deep into that, or you appreciate all these obscure deep cuts into the comic book legendarium, me saying that I don't like this might be like annoying, but I fucking hated it. I just hate it. This is the most self-indulgent, obnoxious thing to read I've ever. I don't know. I'm just gonna read some dialogue. Fetch some animanicles and stareful as you go. There's possibly more of these mudsters loaching here around. I'm well as can be inspected, Bartle. It's just when I saw that shaperition, I thought it was. And that's so like that kind of stuff is fine, like here and there, but these little alien fellas talk like that through this entire issue, and it is god awful to read. Seems I was uncomfortable in my questimation. That is some variety of linguish you're declamoring. I just hated it. Like, if you wanted to accuse Alan Moore of being self-indulgent, this would be the issue that you would build your case upon. Again, I get that this is supposedly based on some other comic strip, and there's maybe something I'm not appreciating about it. You know how people like those Carl Barks comic strips with Scrooge McDuck? And to me, I'm just like, well, that's just Scrooge McDuck. Like, I'm sure it's cool. Like, I'm sure Carl Barks was a really talented guy, and if I read it, I would get what those people are talking about. But just from, like, an outsider's perspective, I hated this issue. Okay. I think that's about all. Fun stuff. Good stuff. Goodbye.